Okay, thank you everyone for joining us. I would like to call this meeting to order in the name of all the journalists who were and still are in Afghanistan doing incredible work. Thank you for your service and for keeping a window open to that part of the world. And with that, Yvette, you can take the roll.
Okay, well, good morning to all, and thank you for everyone being here and for our invited guests and members. I'll take roll call, but in 1 second, I just want to make clear, everyone who begins to chat, please be aware that this is that stays on. This is something that can be seen again. It's a public record. Please be mindful to be respectful of everyone's opinions. We can agree to disagree, but we're here to be adults and just talk things out. With that being said, good morning, Bailene. I know I saw her.
Here.
Claire.
Here.
Raphael.
Here.
Yvette Walker.
Here.
Good morning. Lauren.
Here.
Hi. Matt.
Here.
And myself, I am here. And with that, we
Rebecca.
I'm sorry, Jesus Christ. My apologies. Rebecca Aguilar.
Here.
Okay. Okay, Matt, I'd send it back to you.
Thank you. With that, I will entertain a motion on the minutes of June 26th.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Yvette Walker, second by Yvette Davila Richards. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Any opposed or abstentions? With that, the
I
motion
abstain.
carries
I abstain.
unanimously, except for Raphael's abstention. For obvious reasons, he wasn't there. Okay, and with that, we'll leap into public comment. Does any member of the public want to say anything not on the agenda? Okay, going once, going twice. Israel, I see a hand up. Take it away.
Good morning, board members. I'm happy to be here today. Today, I wanted to talk about something that was on the minutes for the June meeting. In the minutes, it talks about how the process went about to try to get some issues from the bylaws committee onto the board. As some of you may know, the board voted 4-4 to not put forth issues that had come up before the bylaws committee, changes to the bylaws. And in the minutes, it talks about how after the vote was 4-4, there was a process that was introduced that is in the bylaws, which is if an item originates with the chapters and 10 chapters are able to then vote to put these matters before the convention, then delegates can vote on that convention. I'm a little concerned that that process wasn't quite to par with what I call the SPJ ethics when it comes to transparency and accountability. I wish I knew how the chapters voted on it, who voted on it, how was the process that within 3 or 4 days of such announcement, this issue made deadline. But again, I don't have the records of how these 10 chapters did that. So what I would urge the new bylaw committee that comes into with the new board is that we really need to have more transparency and more accountability when it comes to certain things that are in the bylaws. As a lawyer and as a former journalist, I always think if there's any obscurity in the bylaws, that's where things may get lost in translation when it comes to openness to members. And as a member and as a former journalist, I'd really appreciate if we can know more about what happened. I know that there was an attorney that gave his recommendation as to whether or not there was any unethical behavior with the process. I disagree with what the attorney said, but having said that, I would really urge to have more transparency and accountability. And then finally, congratulations, Madam President-elect. You are coming into power with amazing responsibilities, because I'm very concerned that over the last 6 months, the current president used his seat of power to lobby members to put pressure on the board to change votes. It happened, for example, when the board originally voted to not have a hybrid conference, when the board voted looking at science, looking at data, looking at facts, that we shouldn't have a live conference in New Orleans. Now we know they were right. However, the president did lobby SPJ members to put pressure on the board to change those votes. That vote changed, and now we find ourselves where we are. And then also, the current president lobbied members to put this issue of the bylaws before the conference. So, Madam President-elect, I just want to put it on the record that based on what happened over the last 6 months, the new SPJ president will now have the power to lobby SPJ members to put pressure on the board in how she determines how the vote goes. So, Madam President-elect, let me just give you some advice. I call it the Spider-Man approach to power. With great power comes great responsibility. So I urge you, congratulations.
I see Andy with a hand up, but before, because I was introduced by name, I'd just like to respond to that. I don't feel like I put a thumb on the scale, Israel. I think our attorney weighed in on the process for the bylaws particularly, and said it was done appropriately. And the process exists for chapters to get involved, which is what chapters did. I wasn't a ringleader on that. I followed the bylaws in both cases. And ultimately, I think the board ended up making the right decision for health and for financial reasons. And I hope on that, at least, we can all disagree. But I do take issue with some of your comments. I respect your right to air them publicly, and I'm glad that you did if you're upset. As I've done all year, my cell phone is 619-987-7786, and anyone who has any issue is always welcome to call me. And I think people on this call would realize that not only do I return the calls, I do it promptly, quickly, and fully. So I'm a little surprised that you didn't bring this to me personally, but again, respect your right to do so. And with that, I'm going to go to Andy and then to members of the public, and then we'll go back to the board where I see Bailing and Lauren have their hands up. Andy.
Thanks, Matt. I didn't plan to speak, but I figured I would just say a few words since I was involved in the process that Israel talked about. There is a provision in the bylaws that allow chapters to petition to send something directly to the convention. It's only been used once before. In this case, I was the person who contacted chapters and asked if they were interested in signing on. And we got 18 responses. It is true that it was a quick process, but I know from the experience of my own chapter, we have a provision that allows for discussion of something quick and for a vote to be taken quickly. I did not get involved in how things unfolded over days for each chapter, but each chapter was provided their own statement. And if it was not sufficient, I asked them to just be clear about what they were supporting and how they came to that conclusion through a vote. I would suggest if there's any chapter you have any concerns about how they did it, you should contact that chapter and ask them, because that much I don't know. But I know that there is, through, as I said, through my chapter, a way that you can do this and act quickly. So I don't know if that answers your question in any way, but there was nothing that was just, I don't think it was untoward, if that's the insinuation.
Sorry, I saw Bob Becker with a hand up and then it was taken down. Bob, do you?
Yep.
You're the, okay.
Yeah,
Please proceed.
Israel, the letters from the chapters are on record. I believe John posted them as soon as they came in, and the decision was clear that there were more than 10 chapters. This is a procedure that I agree could be much clearer And I would be happy if I am the bylaws chair next year to do some work on clarifying them. Part of that that provision was created only a few years ago when the board wanted to have a process for a referendum. So this is not something that's been in hiding anywhere. It's not something that pulled out from, the dustbin of history. It's there. It's been used once before, and it was followed to the letter. So that's the way it is. And again, I agree with everybody that that article is not entirely clear, and we can clarify it, but it is a procedure of long standing.
Mr. President, can I address that since I was addressed by name?
You can. Because this wasn't on the agenda, I don't want us to get into chapter verse on this issue. I agree with Bob that, that the language should be looked at for improvements. I don't want to get into a big back and forth on this. Israel, I'll let you speak again on the issue, though.
Yeah, I will say the same thing too that I said at the beginning to both Andy and Bob. To me, the concern that I raise is issues of transparency and accountability. And to me, SPJ ethics say that we want to make sure and hold those people in power accountable, meaning the process is always open. So whether or not you got 17 letters, whether or not Andy says, look, we use the process that's in our chapter, I'm sure I don't question that. But what I do question is we need to have openness, because all the chapters voted, but we don't know how many people voted. 3, 2, 5, 4. I don't know that. I don't know the meetings. The meetings weren't recorded. Maybe the chapters, that's the process they have. But as a journalist and as someone who teaches this journalism, what I'm asking the board and I'm asking the new bylaws committee is please insert more transparency and accountability into the bylaws process. We shouldn't have an attorney to say whether or not this was done the right way. We as members should just have all that information in the open. Again, we do this in journalism school, right? If your mother says she loves you, verify it, right? Not because you question your mother's love, but because that's what we do. And that's what I'm urging the board to think about going forward. Thank you, Matt.
Sure. And I would just say directly to respond to that too. There are 18 chapters who sent letters, not 17. They are posted publicly. And along those lines of, if your mother says she loves you, ask her. I think that any member of SPJ, including yourself, has a right to go directly to those chapters. The board made a decision that the process was followed appropriately. The board has the strong belief that those chapters acted appropriately. And so here we are today. And now I'm going to go back to members of the public, and then I see a few board members. So we can go to the board members after members of the public if there are none in addition who want to speak. I don't see any other hands. So we'll go to Beiling, Lauren, Rebecca, and Raphael.
I yield.
I'm sorry?
I put my hand down.
Okay, Lauren.
Thank you, Matt. I'd like to address both issues that have been raised. First of all, this process, while not frequently used, is well established. And as Andy pointed out, it was something that he pursued. It was not anything that Matt did. Secondly, I support and I trust our chapters. And every chapter has its own set of bylaws, and they follow their own bylaws and they follow their own rules. And there was a lot of finger pointing and name calling and questioning of integrity and whether people are telling the truth. And I was very offended by that, as everybody who I know who was in a chapter, they were too. And we need to start treating people with respect again in this organization. There was a period of time where there were some issues. Things smoothed out when Patty was president. And this year I've seen us go back down that hole, and I would like to see that stop now.
Thank you.
The process was followed, and we need to support our chapters, and we shouldn't treat people as though they're lying until they can prove that they've told the truth. Thanks, Matt.
Thank you, Lauren. Rebecca and then Raphael.
Thank you, Matt. First of all, I pursue everything as a journalist. And I was one of the people who asked for verification from the chapters. Now, this is not questioning their integrity. This is not questioning their truthfulness. Everything we do is on the record. So we want to make sure that if someone in the future says, hey, you guys did this wrong, show me what people signed this. What was their standing in the in SPJ, their membership standing? Were they in a good area? It is not about questioning their integrity. It's not about being disrespectful. It is being transparent and accurate. Again, I am a reporter. So I look at everything as verify everything, because someone today, tomorrow, in the future, show me the records. Now, I was told by someone on the staff that said, no, I'm not gonna question them. You know, that's insulting. But again, staff is different from me being the journalist. I have to do this for a couple of reasons: documentation. So if another member in the future says, where's that documentation? How do you know so-and-so, the secretary, was in good standing? Did you ask? Where's the list of names who voted? Again, as a journalist, who, what, where, when, why, how. That is what we do. I don't pursue it as anybody else in another area of my career. My job is to make sure, as a national board member, I have a responsibility. Now, I heard from many chapters. I remember one chapter president approached me and said, are you questioning? Do you think we're lying? No. Again, as I told him, who's also a working journalist, again, documentation. This is in our archives for the future. And so when I ask for any verification, and I hope you chapter members and presidents know, I'm not questioning your integrity. I'm not being disrespectful. I'm thinking of, in the future, someone comes along and says, where is this, Rebecca? Where is this, John? And we have it. Because we are not doing our diligent work if we don't ask for that information. And again, I apologize to some of you if you feel offended, but remember, this is the Society of Professional Journalists. Journalists. And our job is to get the who, what, where, when, why, and how. Thank you.
Raphael.
A few things that I wanted to point out. First, was a question of whether this would have been a 5-4 vote, obviously, had I been present. And I want to make it very clear that I would have voted against forwarding the amendments for consideration at the conference. My reasoning really doesn't matter, because the same events would have played out, even with a 5-4, a solid majority opposing forwarding the amendments. We would have had the same situation, which is the chapters exercising their rights, stood up and said, we want this done. And I did question whether this was being done properly. I didn't question the chapter votes, but there were aspects of, what does it take to bring something to the membership? And did we do this the right way? Did we do this on the up and up? And so we checked with our attorney, and our attorney told us that this was done in a way consistent with our bylaws. Matt, Mr. President, I humbly disagree with you on whether you put your thumb on the scale. I think you did. But I think you had every right to. I think any board member had every right to. And that's how things go. And it's not you exercised your right as a member of SPJ. Just because you're a president doesn't mean you're not a member. You did what you thought was the right thing to do, and I don't think anybody should complain about that. On the issue of the hybrid versus virtual decision, just a couple of things that I wanted to point out. Number one, I don't think the president put his finger on the scale, his thumb on the scale for that one. I think the moment we took our first vote, the membership would have spoken up exactly the same way they did, and things worked out. Things worked out as well as we could have wanted them to, because honestly, if we had made the decision earlier, first of all, to the 4 members who voted against any in-person component, history vindicated you. You were absolutely right. And you should be proud of that. You put the safety of our members above anything else. And that was the healthy, wise thing to do. We got the best of both worlds out of this situation. I think we should be grateful for that. We were able to get out of putting anybody's health and safety at risk and save all the money that we would have spent had we made that decision earlier. I think that the bottom line here is an issue of, our members want to know that we're following our rules, and our members want to know that we're respectful of their involvement. And I think that in both cases, the board has performed according to its duties. We have treated everybody with respect, even when some of us have felt like we were not. And on that point, I'll just refer back to the statements that many board members made before we took the second hybrid versus virtual vote. I think we all spoke our piece at that time, and I stand by those statements. Thank you.
Thank you, Raphael. I see Andrew Siemens' hand up, and then Lauren, if your hand is back up, I'll go back to you after Andrew speaks.
Hi, everyone. So I have a quick question. I've obviously been on the sidelines of the whole bylaws thing. I've been watching it play out, but I've also been talking to a lot of chapter leaders over the past 2 months. And the message that I've gotten from a lot of them is that national makes it hard enough to sort of run a chapter with the requirements, the paperwork, things like that. So when we do question whether or not, a person's in good standing, whether votes were taken appropriately, how far do we go down this rabbit hole? And this is a question for the board. Where do we sort of draw the line between trust and verification? Do we audit all local chapter votes and actions for verification and accuracy? That would be my question for the board. So I don't know who wants to answer that, but that is just a question of mine. If we're going to question them on this, where do we stop? Because there is, obviously, we can do that if that is what we want to do, but where do we actually draw that line?
Thank you. I'll answer for the board. Assuming there's a hypothetical, future boards can weigh in directly. No, the national board operates independently from the chapters, who have their own bylaws, as Laura pointed out, and take their own voice and make their own decisions. Lauren.
Thanks, Matt. I just wanted to go back to the issue of the hybrid, because I disagree that the 4 people who voted for online only are vindicated, because at the time, we didn't know what the future would hold. Everything was going in the right direction. There was no Delta variant yet, and it would have cost us over $150,000. I think what we did was absolutely the right thing to do by doing it the way we did. Unfortunately, the circumstances went in the direction we didn't want them to go in, but because of waiting and doing it the way we did, we were able to get out of our contract with the hotel with no financial penalty. That was the responsible and correct way to do it.
Thank you, Lauren. Any other public comment? Raphael, your hand is up again, or you just haven't taken it down? I don't see any other public comment, but I'm just going to cap this conversation and move on to the meeting with a couple points. One is, I think the entire board and the entire process is vindicated. The decision made at any other time than when we made it 2 weeks ago was not the right decision. We extricated ourselves from the contract without any financial penalty at all, or the requirement to return to New Orleans, and we kept our members safe. So I think the process was vindicated all along, and it's unfortunate that we're not going to be in New Orleans, some of us, but it was the right decision at the right time. And I'm glad that we made it when we did, because any other time would have been premature. I'd also like to say about chapters, no other board in the history of this organization has tried to meet with all 51 of our professional chapters. I respect each and every one of them having come up in a chapter. And I agree, we shouldn't be second guessing acting skeptically toward, disrespecting our chapters. I see this as an act of disrespect. I think that we should stand up for our chapter leaders, respect the work that they do, because some of us are on chapters, local chapters and the national board, and have day jobs and have families and are trying to survive during a pandemic. What they did in a short timetable was look at the situation at hand and make a decision for their boards. And I think we should respect that process and respect them. And if we need to, in the future, change the language of our bylaws to make the process clearer, then let's do that. But I don't think that I did anything inappropriate, to Israel's point. And if anyone wants to call me and talk about that, I'm happy to talk about it, to make time, as I have all year, to discuss it. But the system worked out well, in my opinion. The conference is happening as it should with the facts we have currently and the money we've saved. And at that conference, we will be discussing transparently, publicly, bylaw amendments that are not the purview of this board, but are the purview of our membership. And so that discussion will take place fully and transparently and publicly, as it should. With that, I'm going to end public comment and go to report on our chapters. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. So in a moment, I'll hand it over to Caroline, who can tell us a little bit more about efforts underway to build new chapters for SPJ. But what we're inviting you to do today is Charter 5. Did I get that right? Maybe it's 6. 5 new campus chapters. So that's going to be some exciting news for the organization. But before we do that, Caroline can maybe give an overall update on those chapters, as well as what our efforts are currently to even build more.
Thanks, John. You'll have to forgive me. I'm a little under weather, so I apologize if I sound a little nasally. So we have 5 chapters seeking to be chartered, so they'll go before the vote today. That's Loyola Marymount Universities out of Region 11. We have Stony Brook University out of Region 1, the University of Central Florida, Region 3. University of Laverne was formerly a chapter seeking to be rechartered. They are Region 3. And we have the University of Missouri, Region 7. Along with that, John and I have been working. So our campus chapter task force did an incredible job identifying over 70 colleges and universities and speaking to them, gauging their interest, if they were interested in SPJ chapters on their campuses. And they did a lot of outreach. And when they were done with that reporting, Jerry did an amazing job of handing that project over to HQ, where we are going to take it from there. From those 70 institutions, we identified a list of 10 who were right away yeses. And so we figured, why not start with the yes, right? Like, let's go ahead and secure our top 10 while we can. Why they're fresh yeses in our mind. So on 7/28, we sent out a campus chapter outreach and interest email. These 10 chapters who had already said yes previously, we've had over 4 responses saying that they will work on this. They are very excited. They are definitely interested in becoming chapters. And they've got all of the framework they need with these new chapter requirements. I see no doubts that we're going to obtain at least all 10 of these chapters. So John and I are pretty excited. So we've got a follow-up timeline that we'll work on over the next 3 months. This kind of aligns with the semester of a chapter. Since they work, it's largely more attainable to get feedback and communication from our student chapters while they are in school. So we really want to maximize our efforts while they're in their semester. So over the course of the semester, we'll be working with Hampton University out of Virginia. They are identified as an HBCU. Tennessee State University out of Tennessee. Virginia Union University out of Virginia. They are also identified as an HBCU. Jackson State University out of Mississippi, identified as an HBCU. Benedict College out of South Carolina, identified as an HBCU. Haskell Indian Nations University out of Kansas, they are identified as Indigenous Serving. California State University Long Beach, I think this will be our first one. They're out of California. We've already got several other California State University chapters, so I'm pretty sure that they're going to be one of our first ones to charter. Queensborough Community College out of New York, they're a community college. University of North Georgia, they're out of Georgia. and Southwestern College out of California, another community college. So of these 10 universities, that covers 6 of our 12 regions. So we're also excited that we've managed to spread out some of these campus chapters across our 12 regions. We've identified regions 1, 2, and 3, 7, 11, and 12. And as an incentive to help identify these students, we really want to give them, we understand that we're surviving a pandemic. We understand that universities are still trying to understand what a new normal is. We're understanding that students are having to learn a different way to learn. So we want to try to make it as easy as ever possible. We don't want an SPJ chapter have to be something that they have to work really hard to get. We want to give them the tools as easily as we can. So we've offered each campus chapter, if they become a chapter before a certain date, we've offered them 1 student membership to help identify maybe that president, maybe that secretary, maybe that treasurer that they need on their board. So we've offered them each a student membership as an incentive to help them start the student chapter. So this is where we've taken the campus chapter task force. This is where we are currently. We're going to work with these 10 chapters over the next 3 months and hopefully identify some of those chapters at our next available board meeting. That's really all the updates I have for you now. Other than that, I think we're doing some really, really good work. And again, I just really want to commend the campus chapter task force, the work that they did. I would never be able to pick this up. This project was pretty well handed to HQ in a nice little wrapped package bow. And I can't say enough about the hard work and volunteer work that they did on their own time to make this outreach come to fruition. So thank you so much to the campus chapter task force. And thank you, Matt.
And if I can add, Matt, real quick,
Please
one
do.
more thing too. This year, we also developed a partnership with ACP in which we, ACP members, when they renewed, could add on an SPJ student membership so that all the members of their newsrooms could become SPJ student members for a set fee. And we've had 39 campus college media outlets do that. And so that's a good return on that. And so they'll go and start enrolling as SPJ members once they get back to campus and things like that. So we'll start to see our numbers swell a little bit based on that relationship as well. And in putting together materials for the convention, I'll just say that our student membership has grown by 20% in this past year. So I know, Matt, you made that a priority. Campus Chapter Task Force really had a strong effort there as well. So it's we're going in the right direction there for sure.
Thanks. And I would just like to echo what Caroline and John just said. The task force did incredible work this year under the leadership of Bei Ling and Jerry and Yvette Walker, who are on the board or on the board and the task force. It was really incredible. When I took a convention last year, a young man named Justice Hawkins DM'd me to say he felt like almost like his life had changed because he was a part of SPJ News and was working and reporting, and he never thought that when he started school at Morgan State that he would be in a position he was in, meeting journalists, talking to journalists, getting excited about journalism. And he was on that task force. Excuse me. He was on that task force too. And that's who we're doing this for. We're doing this for students like Justice. And incredible work. It's one thing to give a speech a year ago and say we're focused on diversity and improving campuses. And it's quite another a year later to hear what Caroline just said. It gives me goosebumps. It's incredible. I am really grateful for the task force for the incredible work they did, not only to streamline what it takes to start a chapter, but then to actually go out and start chapters. So from the bottom of my heart, Bei Ling and the others, thank you. And I don't know, Bei Ling, if you want to say anything as the head of that task force.
Yeah, I want to say special shout out to Jerry, whose group really put together the list of chapters or campuses to approach and really executed on that. And I'm sorry he wasn't able to be at today's meeting, but really major kudos to him and that group.
Yeah, thank you very much. Lauren, I see a hand up.
Yes, great work, Bei Ling, Jerry, the whole team. It's really wonderful to see how far we've come and that we've got 5 new chapters on the way. And so I would like to move that we charter the following new chapters: Loyola Marymount University Region 11, Stony Brook University Region 1, University of Central Florida Region 3, University of Laverne in Region 3, and University of Missouri in Region 7.
Second.
Thank you. Second from Bailing. Is that who made that? Okay. Rebecca, I see your hand up.
Sorry, who seconded?
Bailing.
Thank you.
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you to Jerry, Bailing, Yvette, and Caroline. I think this is such a positive piece of information. What I love is the passion that we have, that we continue being what I say is really SPJ chapter strong. That is so important. And you keep that momentum going. And as you spread us all over the country, you bring in more people to our family and of different ages. And that's the beauty, because we keep feeding our organization by opening these chapters in these different colleges. And you're right, Matt, thank you very much, because you did open the door about diversity. And look, it's happening. There's so many organizations talk, but there is no walk. And this team did it. And so I'm very proud of you, proud of the passion, the momentum, the vibe, the feel that I'm left with right now. And I know many who are visiting us right now who are on this board meeting. Thank you so much. And, you know, whether Bailing and Jerry move on, I hope you will continue with us, because we need your energy. We need your passion. We need your ideas. Thank you.
Thanks, Rebecca. Any other comments on this? If not, there's a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed or abstentions? Seeing none, that carries unanimously. Thank you again for that work and that great report, Caroline. Appreciate it. Okay, let's move on to the the SPJ 21 discussion. John.
Yeah, so we just put a spot on the agenda for this as just sort of an overview. Obviously, that's SPJ 21 is coming up. We're about 2 weeks away. Right now, we have 338 individuals registered to attend. That is including a handful or so who did decide to drop out after we made the decision to go virtual only. But we still can have grown since that decision. So I think that's a good sign. And we still have opportunity to grow even further, I think, in the next week or so. Last year, we saw a big influx in the week prior, or a couple weeks prior. So we'll see where that goes. Programming has remained pretty much untouched as far as what was going to be offered to begin with. There's a couple of tweaks and adjustments that we're making just to make it easier for the virtual format. A couple of the receptions won't be happening just simply because they were designed simply to be for those who will be in person, but that's totally understandable. And, the speakers and presenters and panelists and so on and so forth have done a nice job of making a pivot to the virtual. Many of them are already going to be there. So I feel comfortable about that as well. We did review the Chime Live platform. You'll hear the word Chime Live quite a bit in the next couple of weeks. That's the platform we're using for the event. It's going to be a very effective platform. Attendees will be able to get onto that. It looks like a website. They can click on the different things they want to attend, and it takes them to those things. There's also an opportunity for them to chat with each other, to network. Our exhibit hall will be virtual, so there'll be a time for them. They can go, or anytime really, they can go in and look at the exhibitors. We only have a handful this year. Many chose not to exhibit given the nature of where we are as a convention business right now, but we'll build that up for next year. But for this year, we have a nice set of exhibitors who can still interact with the participants, as well as some good sponsorships that have come in as well. So because we were able to, for the board's understandings, was we were able to get rid, or not get rid of, but be able to get contracts canceled due to the situation that the city is in, with the exception of one, and that was our riverboat, but at most will be out $7,500 on that, but we're still trying to negotiate that one. We've been able to get out of everything else, so financially it'll be a pretty successful event because the expenses have been minimized. So that's the update for now. I hope to see many of you on the call here. Board members or those alike who haven't registered yet, still sign on and get aboard. It's going to be a great event, and we're going to have some outstanding education. So.
Thanks, John. Before I kick the mic to other board members, I just want to say something that I told you privately and staff privately. I really appreciate the work you guys have done in the last 2 weeks to pivot so quickly and so well to an online space only. As I said earlier, it was the right decision at the right time, and you have executed it very well with your leadership and a lot of heavy lifting by everyone at HQ. And so again, I appreciate you guys pulling this off. We still got about 10 days or 2 weeks to go here, but I have every full faith and confidence that we're going to get there, and that the number that's about 338 now will actually grow. So that brings me to my second point, which is if you're on this call and have not signed up, please do so. Please promote it. Let people know that there are some amazing speakers and that we can get inspired and motivated and get the camaraderie that we all need at this difficult time in that online space. So if you haven't registered, please do, and please do promote it. There's a question in the chat that I want to give to you, John, before I send it to, it looks like Yvette and Claire have their hands up, and I saw Rebecca's hand up, but I don't see it now. So what, 338, how does that compare to last year is the question in the chat.
Yeah, last year when we kicked off SPJ 20, we had about twice that number, almost 800 registered. So this year we've seen less than that. We also had a higher registration rate this year because we're offering more. So that has something to do with it as well.
Yeah, and to be completely upfront too, the price point was a lot lower last year too, right?
Yeah, it was. And, and then, industry-wide, we are seeing a little bit of a decline in interest in things like this, but it's, we still hope to grow that number in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, Zoom fatigue is real. But we're powering through and we'll get there. Let's go Yvette and then Claire.
Hey, everybody. Just wanted to point out, I saw how NAPJ and ONA, when they had their conferences, how they were continuously live tweeting the promotion daily of all the sessions was going on, like hooked me in. I'm wondering if that's going to be happening with our convention. Will we be live tweeting as well? I mean, I know I always do, I always promote, but I'm wanting to know if there's a plan in action in regards to that, because seeing the tweets that those organizations were putting out consistently and daily as to the sessions, the speakers, as the convention was happening, was a big draw for people signing in and telling their friends like, hey, try to take a look at this workshop if you can. If some people weren't registered, they did have some free sessions, which were far and few in between, but there were some free sessions like the plenary, and I know of some other ones that people were able to participate in. So I just had that question because I think it'll be a good thing for SPJ if we're out there on social media, so that other people see us and we can get people to become interested in becoming members and joining us. Thank you.
Thanks for that question, Yvette. There is the hashtag SPJ21, which folks are using now and will obviously be using quite a bit during the convention. But John, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, and Jennifer can add in too. She's here if she has anything more to share, but we will definitely be tweeting throughout the event, things that are happening and occurring during the event. We have the SPJ News team as well, which is our 12-member strong team of student journalists who will be using that platform as well to convey the news of the convention. And so that will also bolster that. And we'll encourage people attending as well to tweet as they take on a session they enjoy, as they hear something that they really want to reflect back on, things like that. So yeah, we definitely will be doing that throughout the event.
Thanks. Claire.
Yeah, I just want to echo you, Matt, in thanking the staff for all the hard work with the pivot. And I'm hosting a super session, so I get to see some of the behind the scenes work too. The communication is great. Karen is handling technology and reaching out to presenters and panelists, and I appreciate all of that work. And all indications are it's going to be a very smooth event, successful event. So thank you.
Thank you, Claire. Rebecca.
So I want to add to what Claire and all of you guys have said. The staff has done a great job of, the pivot and getting everything done. Karen, phenomenal. But Billy O'Keefe, man, let me just tell you, I'll send him an email. This person's name is not correct, or we need to add this Twitter handle. And man, he gets it done. And I know he's dealing with elections and who knows what other stuff, you know, he has to do for SPJ. But Billy, thank you so much for always having a positive attitude, being creative, and at the same time, you know, just inspiring us to, you know, yeah, come in with your ideas. I appreciate that. And staff, of course. Thank you.
+1 for Billy O'Keefe. There's a question in the chat picking up on Yvette's point. John or Jennifer, maybe you guys can handle that. What kind of advance promo tweets and social media and other platforms is planned?
I'll let Jennifer, if you're able to respond to that, that would be your purview.
Sure, I can do that. Yeah, we've been promoting conference for weeks and months now on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, sending out marketing emails to members and non-members. So, you know, if you've gone to our Twitter or Facebook or LinkedIn, you've seen the social cards. We've done individual ones for individual sessions. They look really nice. Tony Peterson designed them, and Zoe, you know, switches them out, keeps them updated. So, I mean, we've had a marketing plan in action for months now that we've been promoting conference. So, you know, I encourage you to take a look at our various social media pages and see what's out there, and please share and retweet and all that jazz.
Thanks, Jennifer. I don't see any other board members' hands up. Yvette and Claire, have you just taken yours, not taken yours down? Or do you have another question?
I was just going to quickly thank the staff for the work that they're doing. For Billy, he's just, you're right, Rebecca, and what everyone's noted here has been amazing. It's tough when you're under the wire getting things done. And I know John and the staff with the pivot of the convention, trying to make sure everything is up to date, sending it out daily. I know when you're on the deadline, your adrenaline is pumping and you're also stressed out. So I want to give you guys kudos for being able to do what you need to do. This is part of the job, but I know it can become stressful. So I just wanted to give you guys a shout out that I really do appreciate it. And again, I'm here to help. I've been promoting, I'll keep promoting, I'll keep live tweeting. I just wanted to make sure that we upped the ante on that, because like I saw with those two organizations, their draw was huge. And so I want our draw to be huge as well. I mean, I promote the bejesus out of SPJ, and I just want to make sure if everyone could take the time to do a little bit of social media, and by that I mean the board and the members, if you can, that'll be even a bigger deal for us. So that's what I was trying to make sure we were made aware of, because it's a big deal when we're seeing on social media and people hear about SPJ and they're like, wait, what's SPJ? Well, oh no, SPJ is the Shiznits. You know, we got to be with that organization. They really are for the members and for journalists. So that was my point. Thank you.
Thank you, Yvette. I don't see any other hands. So with that, I just echo, you know, we have 10 to 12 days here to promote the heck out of this conference, get people excited about it. So use the hashtag, get the word out there to your circles in any way, in every way that you can. Obviously, this is, you know, we charge money and we take the money so that we can do good things throughout the year. So it's important financially, but really it's important for the journalists and the journalism who are going to come and get stoked about it. With that, let's move on to a discussion about 2023. John.
Thanks, Matt. So in your board materials was a memorandum I put together, just basically framing the discussion today. So to bring everyone up to speed, 2023, we currently are not under a contract, but we had been in negotiations to work alongside CMA and ACP again, which would have been the second year in a row, given that we're doing that with them next year in Washington, D.C. And they're going to Atlanta, the Hyatt Regency there, which is a good property, has space for us to join in, and a good town, a good media city. So there's all points were exciting for that, until we did find out that because they had bumped, this event for them is a bump from 2020, the dates got a little screwy with the hotel, and they went ahead and went with it. And so now we're left to decide, do we think these dates could work for us as well if we went alongside them? The difference is that this would be, they are planning for a Monday through Wednesday event. Now, so normally for our event, it's typically a Thursday through Saturday. So with a travel in day on Wednesday and a departure day on Sunday. So we essentially ask our members to give up 3 weekdays to attend our event. That would be the same here, with the exception of they'd arrive on a Sunday, depart on a Thursday. So it's really more like 4 days or 3.5 days or whatever. Plus it's early in the week. So that's something we need to keep in mind. Do we think that our members would still be interested in attending, given that kind of a time frame? If you don't think so, or you don't think that that can work out, then we should discuss then giving a little direction of where, what we do next. And I encourage us to look again at some of the bids we had already gotten in from West Coast properties, particularly Phoenix, but we could source to some other places as well, and then come back at the November budget board meeting with more of a detailed prospectus for us to decide upon. The other thing I'll just put in before you start discussing is, Katie is looking at it. There could be a possibility that we could start our event, if we stayed with CMA and ACP, start our event Sunday and conclude Wednesday as a travel out day. So we're trying to check and see if space would allow us to do that. So we'd overlap with CMA and ACP. They just may stay an extra day and we may come a little bit earlier, that kind of a thing. If we think that would help, mitigate that challenge. So anyway, so with that, just looking for some board direction first on the dates, and we think we can make that work in 2023. And if not, anything you would like us to do as the next step.
Thanks, John. And just to put a kind of an intro to this conversation, obviously this is a future decision. We're at a pivot point between two boards, and so the next board will weigh in. So this is really more guidance for staff. We're 2 weeks out from the new board, so the new board will be driving this ship. But it did seem to me that some guidance on 23 is better earlier. And especially, as you know, also one of the things I'm really proud of that this board did this year is this partnership with ACP and CMA. I think it is incredible. I think it's going to be transformative for this and their organizations. And I hope it continues in future years. I do not think that, given the dates over Halloween and 3 weekdays, that we should partner with 23. I hope that this is a short board conversation, that we can move on to more pressing matters, because that's just a non-starter for working journalists and for academics. So I guess my suggestion is, and I don't know that this needs a motion, but that we give John and staff some guidance, or this is kind of how to shape this conversation, that we pursue future years with CMA and ACP, but not 23 because of the calendar. And whether this board wants to offer guidance for going to Phoenix, because those conversations have started, that's another discussion. Again, it would be more advisory, and the new board would be calling the shots. But I do want to stress point 2. If point 1 is making a decision on 23 in Atlanta, point 2 should be to involve local chapters, specifically the Phoenix, the Valley of the Sun chapter, so that they're involved in those discussions if we're going to consider Phoenix. And with that, I'll go to board discussions. I'll go in order. Lauren, Claire, Yvette, Raphael, I see are the only hands up so far. Lauren.
Thanks, Matt. I want to start with some historical background and then some thoughts. There have been times where we have done like a Monday, Wednesday. So in general terms, I don't think I would automatically rule it out. While the other is definitely the preferred. I think what the concern I have here is Halloween and how that impacts our members with their families. I think if it would have been any other week, I think it would be something that we should strongly consider, because one of our pillars and one of our areas of focus and priorities in our long-term strategic plan is increasing student members, student chapters, and student participation. And there's no better way to do that than with CMA and ACP. So I'm hoping that partnership does go forward, even if it's not next year, because I guess they'll celebrate Halloween in Atlanta. That being said, I don't know if Tim Igo is here, but I know that there are members of the Valley of the Sun board who for years have been asking to have the conference in Phoenix. It's been, I don't know if we've ever had a national. I've been to a couple regionals there. And so I think it's a great location. and something to consider, and hope that we talk with ACP and CMA about going back in 24, because I know back when the discussion began with the old partnership with RTDNA, our former leaders and others who have great wisdom said you need to give it at least 2 years to see if it's going to work. And that lasted for almost 10. And with any luck, this one will last longer.
Well said. Thank you. Claire?
Yes, I did want to express concern about that Monday to Wednesday for journalism educators. I think it works better toward the end of the week, and then you sort of overlap with the weekend. That would be one suggestion. And then also, I think we should continue exploring collaboration with other groups as well. Maybe NAHJ, the affinity groups, NAJA, maybe even AEJMC, the journalism educators. Although I did look up, and their conference in 23 is in Washington, DC. So, but I think we should continue exploring that area of collaboration. Thank you.
Thanks, Claire. Yvette Davila-Richards.
Hey, so to piggyback on that, I was going to mention as well that collaborating with other orgs seems to be a good thing. Like Claire mentioned, we have NHJ, we have NAJA, we have AAJA, and they hold some really good conventions on their own as well. So I think combining with one of them, or even two of them, if we really plan it out, would be a great thing for the organization. Diversity among the organizations and with us will be a great draw. We'll also get new membership. We'll get younger people signing up if they see if we have collaborations with other organizations. So that's always a big draw. When we used to have, Rebecca, what was it called when we used to meet in DC, all the organizations, Raphael? Unity. Yeah, when we used to have Unity, oh my God, that used to be in the thousands when we would get members that would come through and literally signed up to be part of the other organizations because they saw how much of the advantages each organization offered. So that's always a big win. So I really advocate for that. And also having a Monday to Wednesday doesn't work as well. I agree on that point. Usually the end of the week seems to be better for students and working journalists because they can ask for the time towards the end of the week off. So those were my 2 cents. Thank you.
Yeah, I see a note in here about previous partners. Just for the record, before I go to Raphael, we were over the last decade or so a partner with RTDNA, as Lauren noted. And occasionally within that span, we partnered with NAHJ and with the Native American Journalists Group, who would come in, every couple years. And obviously, the more partners we had, the more membership attended. Those were conferences. Those other groups have their own sponsors and membership. That if you drew a Venn diagram, sometimes there's overlap and sometimes there's not. So definitely partnerships, however and whoever you pursue, is very, very smart. I see the hands of Raphael and Yvette.
In terms of whether we need to take a vote now to give the staff guidance, I don't see where the status quo requires us to or binds us to this Atlanta date for 2023, this Atlanta location or date. So I would think that failing to entertain a motion to join them in Atlanta would give staff all the guidance that they need in terms of where this board stands on doing so. But if you want to vote, I suppose we could do
no,
it.
if I wasn't clear at the outset, I'm not looking for a vote. I just want conversation and guidance. And if the consensus is midweek, Halloween week in 23 in Atlanta is a no-go, then we can tell them that, which it sounds like that's where it's headed. But I'm not looking for a vote.
For what it's worth, that's where I would stand. Thank you.
Thanks, Raphael. Yvette Walker and then Bailing.
Hi, it's noon here and the siren is going off, so I'm sorry for the background noise if you hear it. I agree with everyone. We are stronger with partners than we are alone when it comes to conventions. Well, really in any way. I always thought that the idea of partnering with ACP was just brilliant. I think it's such a good opportunity for us to basically be in a place with all these students. And I understand that the timing is different. The midweek October is different. I wonder though, if they're holding it there, they must believe that it's not, harmful to their potential attendance. So I guess I'd wonder like why they're doing it. So going forward, whether or not we actually meet with them next year, or rather in 23, I definitely think that group is one that we definitely should consider. It works with so many of our pillars or in our strategic plan, not just the building of chapters and creating new student chapters, but also diversity. I don't know what will come with that, but I think that that's a great partnership. We definitely need to pursue it in any way we can. Even if we don't meet in 23 with them, maybe there's another way that we can do something with them. And then of course, looking at the other potential partnerships, always a good thing. I know we have done, partnerships with some of the other groups. Perhaps there were, I think it'd be good to reflect on what those experiences were like, what we learned from that, and whether or not there's some things we'd like to do going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Yvette. Bailing.
Yeah, just a quick note about the AEJMC conference. The membership votes on the location for that, and typically decisions are made years and years out. I just want to mention that the AEJMC right now nationally is in a transition moment because the very long time executive director has retired, and now they're in the process of searching for a new executive director. So if that's something that we might be interested in, although that conference is huge and regularly draws more than 2,000 attendees, but if that's something we wanted to look at, this might be a good opportunity to just check in on from staff to staff level.
Thanks, Bailing. Lauren looks like has the hand up.
Yes, I just wanted to ask the question that Patty raised in chat, and I think this is for you, John. If we want to continue to partner with CMA and ACP going forward, are they open to working on the calendar with us together?
Yeah, so when we had talked about 2024, last time I talked with them, and they've actually, CMA had a change in their leadership as well. So they've been talking mostly with ACP at this moment, but they said that 2024, they were thinking they had some options, but they hadn't settled on anything. So I would go at them with say like, well, let's do this together and find a spot that we think makes a lot of sense. And it would be nice to actually do this one together versus us trying to fit into what they've already contracted. So.
Thank you.
Any other board members or members of the public want to comment? Seeing none. Again, I don't think we need a vote, but it sounds like John.
Yeah, I've got a sense. Mm-hmm.
Okay, great, thanks. And thanks for the work you've been doing on partnerships at conventions and in other places. Like Yvette Walker pointed out, partnerships are year round, not just at convention. Okay. With that, let's see where we're at in the agenda. The advocacy report. Let's add this discussion. This obviously also was in our strategic plan. It was in something we've talked about is getting some guidance and a sense of what SPJ might do for advocacy. And again, we're at a pivot point between the two boards. But as we did with the strategic plan to begin with, this board can offer some guidance and some thoughts. And so I thought a discussion here on one of our most important goals, advocacy, and how we proceed with it going forward was good for this board to do as one of its last orders of business. John.
Okay, so again, there's a pretty robust report in your material, so I don't want to walk through every line and of that, and simply going to turn it over to your questions and discussions in just a minute. But essentially, to frame it, as we studied what this could look like for SPJ, what was originally indicated to be a DC-based advocacy program or team. I talked with quite a few people, talked to, those who have seen what we've tried to do in the past, as well as those who are aware of what's happening now from other organizations and so on and so forth. And I just felt like more direction from the board would be useful here to help us go to the next step, which would be actually to develop, the real details around what this could look like. In here are 3 pathways that I suggest we sort of decide between. One of them is to do nothing new than what we're doing right now. And right now we are doing some things. We are part of coalitions. We put out lots of statements around things that are happening legislatively and, around the nation, even worldwide when it comes to press freedom. We stay aware of those things. But we sort of are an organization that probably amplifies and shares a lot of that information, but we don't have like boots on the ground trying to really address these things too actively. So the other 2 choices would be, one, to focus most on education. So we turn our program more into educating our members, even the general public, about threats to press freedom and First Amendment protections, so that the general IQ of the public and our membership is raised when it comes to those kinds of issues. The theory being then that they are more willing or more empowered to take on advocacy in where they live and where they stand. And so it'd be more of an education focus. So it'd feel a lot like us putting together programs that are educational in nature, awareness campaigns, things like that. The second option would be much more of a heavy focus on lobbying. So this would be probably the biggest pivot for the organization based on where it's been, meaning that we would actually try to, and we'd have to do more research here, so I don't have answers today necessarily. It's exciting to think about, but I don't have answers, that we would be sort of leading more efforts to actually influence the course of events, both in Washington, DC, local governments, things like that. So lobbying, and getting our members behind things that are important around press freedom and First Amendment issues. And so it would be, if you think about it, would be SPJ acting a lot like a trade association, in that we would look for causes that are in particular impacting our members and journalism in general, and we would take a stand on it, and we would actively work to address it or influence it in a particular way. So I see that as sort of general 3 pathways, 3 destinations we could go. And so would be curious what your thoughts are, so that we can start to further define what it is we want to do.
Yeah, so the 3 pathways, as John laid out, are in essence education, lobbying, or the status quo, essentially. Andrew Seaman asks, can it be a mix of all of the above? And sure, it could. I mean, essentially, that's what we do now. We jump in on situations in DC and at state houses and in the city halls, as we see fit. It's kind of ad hoc. So this idea that's been around for decades, and the first past president's Zoom call we had this year took a deep dive into this, and we got a history lesson from all the folks who have proposed this or discussed this or thought about this over decades, really. And I think we're at a unique position in American history because of declining trust in the media, because so many people don't just not read us, they actively vilify us or ignore us. And so the industry and journalists themselves are coming under attack globally and here in the US. So it's kind of a fraught moment. And so I think this will be a good conversation to have, to kind of offer some guidance to future boards. I personally think that it would be great to have a funded position. I see the name Director of Advocacy and I kind of get goosebumps. I think that would be an important position, but it's a lot of money. And I do think that the choice for future boards will be whether that's the investment to make or whether we keep doing it on this ad hoc volunteer basis, which is difficult when boards change every year, presidents change every year, priorities change. And so I think this will be a healthy discussion for the next iteration of this conversation. And I see Lauren's hand first, and then I'll go to Rebecca, Claire, and Raphael. Lauren.
Thanks, Matt. So I guess I'm going to ask for pathway number 4, which is a lot of what Bob Becker and Andy Seaman have said in chat. We have done a lot more in the past than we are doing now. And I think that there's a way to formalize moving forward in the future some of the things that had been more formalized in the past that make us more active, but do not go to the extent of pathway number 2. There were board members who went to the Hill twice a year with the executive director to lobby. We can do that. We can have sunshine chairs. We can have a more active FOI group. We can create that community that we were talking about and really focus on FOI and freedom of information at basically the volunteer level with supportive staff. And that would be what I would recommend we look forward to. So I don't know if that's would be called pathway 4, or as Andrew put it, the combination of all 3. Like Matt, the idea of having a director of advocacy is wonderful, but from a financial standpoint and all of our other priorities, I just don't see it as realistic. Maybe down the road, if we rebuild what we had and we get active again, and there's ability to find funding and do that, that might be the next logical step far into the future. But I would really love to see us be much more active in the ways that we have been in the past, because I think that we had been very effective. And to the point that Matt made, John, I know that there's past presidents. I know Dave Coulier is Mr. FOI, and I'm sure he's given you a lot of thoughts and ideas. And I would really mine that group for information and know-how, and don't have to reinvent the wheel. There were things they did that worked. There were things they did that didn't work, and start with that knowledge. Institutional memory can be very helpful to help inform the future and build from that.
Thanks, Lauren. Rebecca.
Thank you. John, excellent report. I appreciate all the details in there, from the starting vision to the financials. I think we need boots on the ground. I think we need someone exclusively on this situation, because while I appreciate all the volunteers, and I'm a volunteer, for example, this week I was taken out for the pandemic. It's really hit hard here in the jails. And so if we have a paid person there exclusively on this, keeping up to date with everything, someone that could go before a Senate subcommittee, someone who will work with the board, will keep the president informed, make sure the chapter's informed. Now, the beauty of having someone in this exclusive position is that they can, and I hope that will, ask the FOI committee or the ethics committee or any other committee to come in and help. But this way, if we have someone exclusive, excuse me, this person can concentrate on this 100%. They're being paid to do this job, paid to represent us journalists, because Matt is right. This is a difficult time. We're being slammed, out in the field. As someone who goes out in the field and has dealt with protesters and have dealt with people that call me fake news, I love having someone on boots on the ground, the defender, the protector, the one with the information that can be provided to us and the public. So I was hoping that, I saw the money that is needed for this position. I think I always believe in threes and in contracts of threes, because, the first year is getting to know it, second year, feeling the vibe, third year, I own it. And so, I think that would be great. Funding, I'm not really sure. Again, I know the foundation has $16 million. Can we go there? Is there anywhere where we can get funds? But I feel good about this, John. I think we need a person there in DC, in the brain. They're happening. And again, when you call volunteers, let's say you're calling me and I don't have time. We do have all these committees, but they're volunteers. And many of them are working full-time jobs, just hanging on to their jobs in some cases, because I have been talking to different committee people since I will be taking over in 2 weeks. So nice plan, John. I see a vision here. I feel very positive about this. I want to be positive about it. And yes, while history is important and what we've done in the past with the organization, let's open a door. Let's be different. let's really nourish our chapters, our president, and definitely benefit from the history, because all those people with history are important. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. Next to Claire.
Yeah, I just want to share that I've seen this work, this proposal, this plan work on the state level. In New York State, we have an organization called the New York News Publishers Association. I'm going to put the link in the chat. And there is a full-time lobbyist there who works in the New York State Legislature on our behalf, and she is in Albany. And she calls attention to issues that we may miss as journalists or as an organization. And it's very helpful. And she's an expert lobbyist. And so I've seen it work well on the state level. So I really like the idea of it on a national level. And I think it would raise our profile as well as an organization. And I urge you to check out the link for the New York role model. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire. Next up is Raphael.
This is something I've given a lot of thought to. I think that Rebecca made a very strong point of being able to resort to somebody as a defender of journalism. I'll go a step further on that and say that we are that defender. That's us. That's not somebody we hire. That's who we are, and we hire somebody to articulate it, if anything. And I agree that this is a worthwhile investment for SPJ. I think that the only question would be the timing of it. When would be the right time to to make such a hire? I don't think the person should just be a lobbyist. I think he or she should be more of a coordinator of a large scale effort to be proactive, for SPJ to be proactive in being the defender of journalism, in being the public face of journalism. I've said before, doctors have the American Medical Association, lawyers have the ABA, dentists have the American Dental Association, and journalists have Sean Hannity. That's who speaks for us, because we get critics and we have nobody standing up for what we believe in and what we do and what we stand for. So I think it really is, it's our job to do that. And the fact that the majority of America does not know who we are is a problem that we need to solve long-term. I think this is a step, a crucial step in that direction, having somebody whose job it is for that to happen. But I think that's going to be an existential commitment on the part of SPJ to make sure that we're not just sitting here quibbling about bylaws, but we're actually out there telling America what journalists stand for, and being our defenders. Thank you.
Thanks, Raphael. Yvette Walker.
Yes, I appreciate the report as well, John. And I see there's some overlap between advocacy and journalists, because whether or not it's a paid position or some kind of maybe even a contract, I don't know, the person involved in advocacy, I think, would be in a unique position to also educate the public. And to be honest, make journalists proud of being journalists and proud of what we do, and not be down so much. And so I think there might be a hybrid way to look at this. I love Claire's idea about advocacy at the state level. I know, DC is the shining capital, but a lot of the work gets done on the state level. So I like that idea. And it's something that we definitely should take a look at. I appreciate that we are taking a look at that. I think it's very exciting to be able to go to DC as we did twice a year and walk the halls. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't do that, but I like the idea that we're talking about other ways of getting this kind of work done. And I'd like to point out, if we are able to fund a position, I'd like to give a little love to Karen Sneath, who's our Director of Education. So we hired her in a role like that. And I am the Education Committee Chair, and Karen has been invaluable to me and to other of the projects that we've done in education. So if I can see, if we were to hire a Director of Advocacy and we can get just a little bit of the work done that Karen has done, it shows us that it is good to have a person there who is thinking about this all the time and not having to share those, share the so many roles and so many duties that, that a lot of staff has to do now. So I'm just, throwing Karen a little love. She's done a great job. And it just shows that if we are able to put someone in a position where they are able to think about this is what they do, then I think it could be a really good opportunity. Obviously, I know we have to figure out how to fund it. Thanks.
Thanks, Yvette. Yeah, and along the same lines, I was thinking of Rod Hicks, who also joined in a different position, but in recent years, because of funding, has been focused on ethics, diversity, core issues of SPJ, and maybe advocacy could be the same way. I mean, a lot of this is dependent on funding, no question. Someone might want to fund it though. I see Bei Ling and Lauren's hand up. So why don't I go to Bei Ling first because she hasn't spoken, and then back to you, Lauren.
Thank you, Matt. I just wanted to say that I definitely support having a full-time dedicated person focused on this. But I also think that however we move forward or the new board moves forward, there needs to be parameters put around the position so that it can be as effective as possible. Legislative advocacy is not the same as public advocacy. Being the leader of an advocacy effort is not the same as being the organizer and the trainer of an advocacy effort. So 100% supporting the full-time dedication of a paid person. I just think future boards need to be really thoughtful about putting parameters around that position so it can be fully effective.
It's a great point. Super valuable. Thanks, Bei Ling. Lauren, back to you.
Thanks, Matt. And I agree with what Bei Ling just said about the parameters. I think that's very important, and education needs to be a part of whatever we do. I don't think there's any person on this board or in this organization that wouldn't support having a full-time person in DC to advocate for us. And I think for the people who want to do that moving forward, what needs to be done is to identify a source for funding. The foundation is not going to be it. I'm pretty clear on that based on things they've said in meetings in the past year or so. So brainstorm, go out, bring the money in, and then create the position.
Yeah. That's a great point, especially because we're in the field now looking for someone to help us raise money. Raphael, do you still have a hand up or did you just not take yours down? I'm going to assume unless you say otherwise, you just didn't take it down. Anyone else want to offer some guidance to John? Again, I think this is a kind of a early step discussion, but an important one to keep
happening. Very helpful. And the information in the chat's been extraordinarily helpful too. And I think, yes, I mean, the funding is going to be the big question. So we're going to have to get creative on that, given that I think some of our normal sources of funding may not be excited or may not be able to fund anything close to lobbying or efforts of that nature because of tax statuses and such. But where there's a will, there's a way. We'll find a way to do that. And I'm excited about that too.
Thanks, John. I see Andrew Seaman has a hand up. Andrew.
I just want to encourage everyone, regardless of what path the board takes, for the incoming board and future boards, not to necessarily wait until you can get the funding together or to get a position in DC. This is critical, and it needs to happen on an ongoing basis. So if the incoming board, future boards can figure out, hey, what can we do now? That's equally important. Also getting out there, finding funding to hire someone, because I don't think we have really any more time to lose on these issues. So my encouragement would be to, whoever's on the next board and the incoming boards to figure out what you can do now, what you can mobilize within the organization to say, regardless of Republicans, Democrats, and wherever people fall in between, build those foundations. So that way, when someone does come in, when you do hire someone, they can come in and say, hey, listen, we're not new on the street here, where, K Street is a big place, and We are here, we've been here, and now we have a focus. So you're building a good foundation. Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks, Andrew. And a couple points to raise about the foundation's involvement. Obviously, it's as Bob Becker points out, it's a C3 and cannot support lobbying, but its core involvement is with education. And as Patty points out, it funded Rod Hicks's position for several years before it morphed into where it is now and the funding that it has. I see Yvette's hand and then Israel's hand. So Yvette.
Hey, I'm also in agreement of having a paid person, paid staff person, be the director of advocacy. And yes, I am concerned with the money that we need to round up for this. But I think if we put our heads together and based on the recommendations that Andrew, Rebecca, Lauren, Bailing suggested, and even all the other members, I think we could and should make this work. I understand that the foundation cannot fund this. It is something that I feel we need. Parameters, like Galen stated, is a must. I also think that the person should have knowledge of education and also lobbying procedures. I know we've had Rod Hicks in various capacities in the organizations, but I'm not sure aware if he has any lobbying experience. So that's something that for me is wanting to have someone like it's been mentioned here by Rebecca and Raphael, protect the journalists with candid and valid and legal information. I will feel more secure if the person had that background behind them. I feel it's something that we do need. I feel it's something that would benefit us down the line. And yes, to Andrew's point, working now to make sure we find out what will be the ins and outs, what will we need, so that if we get this person, we can just present them with what we've acquired, what the knowledge that we have and the things that we need so they can hit the ground running. But I feel a paid staff member would work solely for this. That will be their mission, that will be their focus. As volunteers, when we have our jobs and our families, it's kind of hard to take on another position to then put forth such an important job and the information that we need. So I just wanted to express that. Thank you.
Thank you, Yvette. Israel.
Yeah, I'd like to just inform the board on this decision based on what happened earlier this year in the FOIA committee. I'm a member of the FOIA committee, and we were asked by the News Media for Open Government Coalition to weigh in on federal legislation involving SLAPP lawsuits. For those of you who, again, don't know what SLAPP means, it's a strategic lawsuit against public participation. There are these kinds of statutes at the state level, but we don't have one at the federal level. Basically, what it would do is it protects, say, journalists who are doing a story on a corporation, and the corporation doesn't like what we're reporting. Again, the reporting is based on facts. They threaten to sue you. If they do sue you, then a SLAPP legislation is a defense to the lawsuit. And then if the corporation loses on the initial stages of the lawsuit, they have to pay your attorney, right? So it's a great protection for journalists, specifically freelance journalists. So we were asked at the FOIA committee our thoughts on a federal legislation proposal that was put together by News Media for Open Government. They had partnered up with both left of center organizations and right of center organizations. They were trying to get consensus so that this type of federal legislation could pass. When I saw the proposal, I raised two issues among the FOIA committee. One of them was that organizations on the right and the left didn't want to put into the federal legislation that the defendant would have the right to recover attorney fees if the initial lawsuit was thrown out because of SLAPP federal legislation. The reason that was taken out of the federal legislation was because these organizations, both left and right, they had an interest in using SLAPP not as a defense, but more as a plaintiff power, especially I'm thinking of American for Prosperity. They wanted to use it to go after entities instead of a defense. In the legal memo that I wrote to the FOIA committees, I said, I am very concerned that this type of federal legislation would hurt journalists, specifically freelance journalists, because they're working on stories and it's very easy for corporations to go after freelance journalists because they don't have an in-house general counsel, right? So the best way for freelance journalists to protect themselves is to have this slap defense. And the folks from the News Media for Open Government said, look, if you all insist on having this, the plaintiff pays for the attorney, that's a no-go for these other partners in this federal legislation. I tell you this to say, sometimes the interests of people in Washington, D.C. are not aligned with the interests of the members. So I'm laying this down for the board to kind of think about that. In Washington, D.C., we do have lobbyists. They're called journalists, and they write for major news organizations like The Hill, like Roll Call, like Congress Daily, like CNN. And so maybe a person like Rebecca kind of hinted at, someone who knows the ins and outs, but can less be a lobbyist on Capitol Hill, but certainly educate the public and educate the members as to what is going on. Sort of the red alert emails and newsletters that are sent by these organizations on both the left and the right. But I would say we do need advocates, but the best advocates are the people that are watching and the people who have signed up for SPJ, because the public needs us, regardless of whether they like us or not. Thank you.
Thanks, Israel. I'm still seeing Raphael's hand, but I think that just was never taken down. Any other comments before we move on to the next item on the agenda?
I actually did have something I wanted to say, but
Please do.
it was in anticipation of Israel going in a different direction than he did. So I'm going to lower my hand now.
Okay. Hazel, I see you with a hand up. But we don't hear you.
Okay, I think you can
There
hear
you
me
go.
now, and I could even maybe make it so you can see me if you want. There. I just wanted to counter what Israel just said about journalists being the lobbyists in Washington. That's just not right. I never considered myself as a journalist to be a lobbyist. And I think that most people who, well, all right, I won't say what most people would say, but we are not lobbyists. That's all.
Thanks. And Beiling echoed that comment in the chat. Rather than get into a discussion on this issue, I think that this was a good conversation. I think that we, moved the ball forward and had some things that John can consider and that Rebecca and the next board can factor in as they make this important decision about an important issue. So with that, John, why don't we go to the last item of business, which is reports. I don't think we've got any written ones. So if anyone on this call, this is an opportunity for people to talk about their committees if they so choose. And it may be that we wrap this meeting up in short order if there are none. Rebecca.
Yeah, just a real quick note that it's on the agenda. I didn't invite the committees to submit reports for this rather than submit final reports for the final board meeting, which is 2 weeks from now. So that's why you probably don't have any written reports. And I apologize to the committee chairs for not being clear about that.
Yeah, I dropped them that note in a Slack channel too. So we can expect reports in a couple weeks. But if there are verbal reports, I see Rebecca and then Yvette Walker and then Andy have their hands up.
Okay, so real quick, before I forget, please spread the word. If anybody wants to, am I on there? Yeah. If anybody wants to join a committee, head a committee, please contact me. I guess someone's dog is out there. Real quick, I am the head of the Diversity and Inclusion Committee. Yvette Davila Richards is a vice chair. She's here with us. The SPJ 21 Diversity Fellowship is going to happen. We have 6 great fellows. They're awesome. Please, the SPJ headquarters, SPJ Diversity on Twitter has introduced all of them. Please stop in there, say hello, congratulate them, make them feel welcome. That's so important. We have special speakers for them in the morning and in the afternoon. Throughout the day, they get to go and visit all the sessions and panels they want to do because, they all have different needs. So I'm excited about that. And that's the main report I wanted to give. Thank you, John, Thank you, everybody in the staff that's helping us, get this done. It's sad we didn't have it last year. It's good that we have something this year. And, next year, I can't wait. So thank you.
Thanks, Rebecca. It is great to see the fellows again. I'm glad that is working out. Yvette.
As John said, I'll have a formal report in a couple of weeks, but I just wanted to thank the Journalism Education Committee. We've been meeting monthly since last fall, although we took a couple months off this summer, June and July. We have another meeting tomorrow, or not tomorrow night, but Monday night. We've thought about lots of programming. There will be a session that was suggested by the Journalism Education Committee at the convention. So they've been very active, and I just want to publicly thank all the committee members. They've done a lot of hard work. There's a lot of ideas, a lot of work still to be done. We'll try to finalize some things that we want to move forward on Monday. And I just wanted to point out, in talking about the chapter and the chapter task force, I have to give kudos to Bailing and Jerry. They did all the heavy lifting. I was only involved in regards to my position on the Journalism Education Committee. So they were really, carrying all the buckets of water uphill and downhill. And I really, really appreciate them, because as you can see, it was a great outcome. But I think that there's some excellent things that are coming up with journalism education, and we'll see, where we want to continue to go with that. So again, many thanks and kudos to my committee.
Thanks, Yvette. Andy.
Great, thanks. I'll just be brief. We don't have a whole lot specific to talk about, but there will be a lot of work coming up in the near future for our committee. This is the off season when we do a review top to bottom of all of our contests. This will be a particularly challenging year. Number of things coming together, having a new person on staff, having a whole new set of categories on COVID, lots of questions and ambiguities that emerged in our contest this year that we need to address. So the committee is diving in, and our calendar is a little bit different because we start our work once the contest, and Lou needed some downtime, particularly this year. So we took a little break, but now we will be starting up, and I'll hopefully have more to explain about that for the final report.
Thanks, Andy. I think that's it for committee reports. Just a quick note, Israel in the chat, I just want to get this on the record, noted that he was not saying that journalists should lobby, that he was saying that the work should speak for itself. So thanks for clarifying that point, Israel. And with that, I think I just want to make two quick points before I see Lauren's hand zipping up for a motion, which I will entertain in 1 second. Next week, I just want to call your attention to anyone listening. There's a delegate meeting Monday at 5:30 Pacific time. I'm going to keep saying Pacific time while that matters until Rebecca can start saying a different time zone. Monday night, a delegate meeting at 5:30 for those who would like to attend, and a candidate forum 5 p.m. Pacific on Wednesday, which is a first of its kind event to get as many of these candidates in a room and answering questions from the members of SPJ, which I think is really important. And I just want to shout out to Andy Schatz for pushing for this for years. And I'm glad that we finally made it happen this year. Rebecca, I see a hand up. Do you have a comment before the motion?
Yes. What motion? Okay, I don't know.
And just for a point of order, it's not a delegate meeting, it's a training for delegates like the one last week.
Correct. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
Thanks for clarifying that, Laura.
I wanted to say thank you to all the candidates that have jumped in. I know that I have been tweeting, please join us, just do it. I know some of you are just brand new. Some of you have, roots here. Leadership is leadership. Come in here and inspire. I am so grateful that Alex Triquinio approached me several years ago and said, Rebecca, run for the board, bring diversity, do it all. And I thought, really? And look, in 2 weeks I will be the president. So thank you to all of you. All of you. You will see that I like and I retweet your videos and whatever. If you have a video, I'll retweet it because I want people to see that you're running. So I want to say thank you. And for any other people out there, if you haven't thought that I can do it, you can do it. A few years ago, I was on a committee and look at me now. you can do it. So, feel free if you want to jump in, there's still time. You can do it. So thank you so much. And I can't wait to see who will be on the next board. But, I appreciate all of you. I really do. Thank you.
Thanks, Rebecca. Another programming note John just mentions, resolutions ahead of convention are due to Mike Savino by 8 p.m. Eastern time. And you can get his email if you don't have it. So with that, I will now entertain a motion, and I know Lauren is chomping at the bit to make
Thank
it.
you, Matt. I move to adjourn.
I second.
All those
Rebecca
in-
seconds. Okay.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed or abstentions? Seeing none, it is unanimous. Thank you all for taking time out of your Saturday. See you
Take care,
soon.
everyone.
Take care, everyone.
Bye. Thank
See you
you.
Wednesday.